Welcome to Fireside. I'm Karen Ray, and I'm here today with Jennifer Soames. Jennifer, thank you for joining us today. You are an author. You are a certified structural integrator.
Yes.
And a certified yoga teacher. You have written a book.
I have.
And you are also a TBI survivor, which is a traumatic brain injury.
Correct.
And you have an incredible story. I'm so glad you could join us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you have written a book called, let's hold it up here.
Yeah. So my book is called Head of Hope. It's a resource and empowerment guide for living and thriving with a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, so you have quite the story. We're going to be talking about your story, about the struggle, and about the hope that you're bringing to other women and men.
Yes.
And talking about TBI, because it sounds like a lot of people don't even know what TBI is.
Right, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about what a traumatic brain injury is or isn't, and a lot of people don't understand that a concussion is a mild traumatic brain injury. There seems to be an idea that they're different, but they're actually the same thing.
Okay, so let's talk about your story a little bit, because you started out, what was it, 5 years ago?
Yeah, just over 5 years ago now.
Yes, and you had a couple accidents.
I did.
Yeah.
So in November of 2013, I was riding a horse in a lesson because I've been a horse person my whole life, and I was in a lesson with my trainer and was riding a horse that I didn't know, and she spooked, and so she completely sidestepped and really hopped to one side, and I came off the other, landing on my back, hitting my head with my helmet on.
Okay.
And got a concussion there, and ended up driving myself home, which
oh my God,
was not the best idea. But then after really a horrible night, honestly, probably the worst night of my life, hopefully this far and hopefully ever, we went to the ER after a little bit of treatment that morning, the next morning, and was in a car accident on the way home from the ER 25 hours later.
Oh my gosh. So what were the symptoms? I mean, having a concussion like that, how did you know that there was something really wrong? You said it was painful?
Yeah, so right off, at least that day that it happened, when I went to get in my car, I was extremely tired. And as I was getting into my car, I got increasingly tired, and I mean, very abnormally. And it just happened that I'd written a paper years ago about horseback riding injuries, and the most common one is actually concussion. So I think if I hadn't written that paper, I wouldn't have known. But really what led me to know that I had a problem later on was a lot of trouble with sleep, could not sleep. My balance was off, and for me being a yogi, like I always have good balance. Definitely memory problems, walk into a room, not know why I walked in there, and the inability to control my emotions. Get really irritable and then sad, and I could not control it at all.
Wow. So you had this accident, you knew something was wrong, you go to the ER, and then you have lingering symptoms.
Yes.
And that's with the sleep and everything.
Yes.
So I think you were telling me before too that a lot of people, when they go to the doctor, they go, okay, well, I can't sleep. And so then you're being treated for that. How did you know that it was a traumatic brain injury, and how was that dealt with?
Yeah, well, when I went to the ER, I was actually diagnosed with concussion. So I actually did have that diagnosis first. And so as a couple months went by, and I just knew things weren't right. I knew I wasn't right. And thankfully, being a holistic health professional, I know a lot of good people, and they knew people. So thankfully, they were able to point me in the direction of even a functional neurologist who specializes in brain injuries. So thankfully, I had people who definitely pointed me in the direction that I needed to go.
Yeah, so what are the therapies then? Where did it take you, and can you be healed from it?
Well, I think to be healed can mean different things. From a physiological perspective, your brain can heal to the best of its capacity within a couple years per my neuropsychologist. But do you ever actually really recover from something like this? I would say not really, because you adapt to a new normal.
Okay.
And that's really what people have to do, is find a new normal, because you can't go back to the way that you were.
Right. So that's what you're living in now, is your new normal.
Right.
And that's what you're trying to give people hope for, is how to adjust to this new normal.
Absolutely. And there are so many different kinds of treatment options out there that a lot of people don't know about. There's allopathic, so Western medicine, like neurology, neuropsychology, counseling. Sometimes medication is indicated, but there's a lot of other things that people can do too, like craniosacral therapy, structural integration, meditation, yoga, and all kinds of other things that are great complements to each other. It's not really either or, but how about and combining these things.
Okay. So what is your new normal like? So do you still have problems sleeping? I mean, what are the struggles that you still have to daily deal with?
There's a lot, but to keep it short, the biggest struggles really are hormone imbalances. A lot of times people think about just the cognitive things with brain injury, but I have pituitary damage, and your pituitary gland is right behind your eyes here. It's about the size of a pea, so very little, and it controls all of your hormones. And so for me, I can't produce all of my hormones because that pituitary is damaged. So when you have deficiency in any of your hormones, there are symptoms. But when you have symptoms in deficiency, or you have deficiency in all of your hormones, you have a lot of symptoms.
Wow.
So to balance that has been a long struggle, and those things actually affect me probably more than anything else because each one of them has their own challenges.
So, I mean, and to look at you, I mean, people would have no idea.
I know, because I look fine, right?
Yeah. And so how has this changed your outlook on life?
It has definitely made me realize that I can't do things by myself, like that I need a team around me. I need that support. I need that village around me. And to understand how important that is to any person, whether they have a traumatic brain injury or just a healthy human being, but to know that I don't have to go it alone. And I think that is a huge lesson for me as someone who wanted to do everything by myself to prove myself.
Right.
And to go, no, I need help.
So what is wonderful about that is that now you are trying to help other people who are having this, dealing with traumatic brain injury as well, and bringing awareness to it. So you have started a couple different things. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I mean, this book is definitely hopefully my gift to other TBI survivors from my own experience. It is essentially a roadmap of how to live life thereafter. So it has my story, but also the treatment options, the self-care, all of those things. And this is a great way to reach people who don't know what to do, who to see. And then I also have a YouTube channel called Head of Hope, the same title of the book. And I have my TBI diaries there. So I share little snippets about what it's like to live with a TBI so that people have more empathy and get a better understanding of what my daily life is like.
That's great. Well, thank you for coming and
Thank you,
sharing
Karen.
with us. It's very enlightening, and it's so wonderful to see that you're bringing hope to other ladies and men who are suffering from TBI. And thank you for joining us on Fireside. We'll see you next time.